All right, so we'll get started. Thank you for joining, and hello again to this webinar. And those webinars happen every month, as you probably know if you've been following us. And they tend to focus on a specific theme around the 360 Suite tools. And today we are going to focus on GDPR and how our tools help you with your GDPR compliance project, especially in relationship to business objects. So I'm going to introduce first. My name is Mina Kuti. I'm a pre-sales engineer with GB & Smith for a little bit, almost a year actually. So I've been focusing on the 360 Suite suite of solutions. And I've been working on business objects for about 12 years now, whether with business objects itself, SAP, and then after within the business objects / SAP partner ecosystem. So this webinar is being recorded, but if you do have questions, then please ask them. I can see them in the question pod on my second monitor, and I'll be delighted to answer those questions as we go along. I also provided a handout which you can download onto your machine, and that's a PDF version of the slides that we're going to go through today. So before we get started with how to be compliant within business objects in regards to GDPR, I would just like to spend a couple of minutes going over the solution of tools that we supply. And we essentially provide a number of tools to help you with the administration of SAP Business Objects landscape. So we've got 6 tools displayed here. So the first one, a 360 view, is a tool that allows you to secure your deployment, to do general business objects administration, essentially a bit as a replacement to the CMC. You can do a lot of bulk actions, bulk updates of user properties, objects, the likes of such, and you also have access to matrix, which makes not only the administration of security but also the implementation of security much easier. Next, we have 360 Plus, and that includes anything that has to do with backup, promotion, so backup and recovery as well. And we have 360 Verse that bolts onto the technology used by 360 Plus to enable you to version content within your business objects and get full version analysis and lifecycle analysis of the content that you have versioned. Then we have 360 Cast, which allows you to schedule and dynamically burst your business objects reports. So that can be used as a replacement for publications, and that can also be used alongside your enterprise scheduler. Then we have 360 Bind, and this is our flagship solution to allow you to automate report comparison and regression testing. We've got a new tool as well, which we will actually look at as part of this webinar, and that's 360 Univ. And that's a client tool that will allow you to do bulk updates of universe objects, so their properties, their SQL, their workflows, and you can do inserts, you can do also bulk deletes should you wish to. And the last tool, which we will also see during this webinar, is 360 Eyes, which is our BI on BI tool, so you can do a deep dive in your business objects environment and metadata, found out what is used, not used, do full audit trails of user actions, do impact analysis to track the impact that any changes to a universe or enterprise data warehouse have on your reports within business objects. So another quick word about how those tools come packaged and how they get deployed. So View, Plus, Cast, and Bind get deployed under a web server. Typically, our clients deploy it under their Tomcat on which their business objects sit. Alternatively, they have a dedicated Tomcat that they use to deploy those web applications. 360 Eyes uses a database so that when metadata is extracted from business objects, then it is stored in that database and can then be queried via webby documents which we provide. And 360 Univ is a client tool which can be installed either on the application server, the business object server, or it can be installed on your client tools. So GDPR, that's been a hot topic for the past year or so. And it is quite important to make sure that we're all ready for GDPR and that we are all compliant. And what it is essentially is a piece of EU legislation which will apply directly from the 25th of May 2018, so not long to go. And it pertains to anything that is personal data and how that personal data is used, how it's processed. So that's from when it's collected to how it's stored, how it's transmitted, how it's shared, and what happens when it's deployed. So in the UK, there is already a Data Protection Act, but those policies have been reviewed and they need to be consistent with the revised obligations under GDPR, which essentially formalizes it to be applied consistently to the entirety of the European Union. So data mapping is going to be something that becomes critical when it comes to GDPR and understanding what is happening with that personal data that you have. You need to be able to identify and to clearly document the flow of data across the business. And there also needs to be internal governance processes to demonstrate all the decision making that is taken around that personal data. So who has access to it, the reason why it's being used, how it is disposed of, the right to deletion. So if somebody asks for their personal data to be removed from your storage or your database, then you need to be able to do that without essentially asking questions, because it's a right as part of the GDPR regulation. But again, that means that you need to know where that data lies and the potential impact it has with its existence. And that also touches upon the flow of personal data, not only within an entity that is based in the UK, but also outside the UK and also the economic European Union as well. We need to be able to track that flow of data, where it's going to, who it's going to, why it's going there. Is it really necessary? We also need to be able to handle data breaches. So we need to be able to identify, record, and respond accordingly to those data breaches. And one of the things of GDPR legislation is the appointment of a chief information officer who is responsible for the security of that data and who's responsible for handling all of that internal process. So as a reminder, personal data is any information that relates to a person that is identified or identifiable, whether that person is still dealing with the business or is still an employee within the business or has moved on. If there are records that are being kept about that person, that also falls under the umbrella of being identifiable as an entity. So data security needs to govern personal data stored, including any service providers. So that means if your database or you're using any kind of hosting for the data, then there needs to be a follow-up as well with those service providers, because they are the ones that might maintain the systems that hold the personal data, but it needs to be secured, and as the owner of the data, you're going to be responsible for that. So that poses its challenges, obviously, and in that sense, we need to be able to a report or to identify the flow of personal data within businesses. And this can be done as part of a gap analysis. So we can see what we have, what we don't have, what is required, and then we can fill the gaps accordingly. So first of all, what personal data is held? Second, where is that data stored? Third, what is the data used for? Fourth, how is the data shared? And fifth, who has access to that data and who are the users using the data and what are they doing with that personal data? So that set of questions or objective to assess the compliance with GDPR and to address any deficiencies, and more importantly, to remain data aware, to know exactly what is going on with personal data. And that's a big challenge because SAP BusinessObjects, your reporting infrastructure is also subject to GDPR. It's not just what is in ERP systems, it's in the reporting landscape. And there's a lot of exchange of data, of information, including personal data. And it is important to have visibility within business objects of that personal data. So again, another set of 5 questions. What is the personal data that is available within the enterprise data warehouse or the reporting databases or reporting sources? And we're not just talking actually just about databases. Excel spreadsheets, that also counts as a reporting source that might contain personal data, and that is also subject to the compliance needs for GDPR. So that needs to be clarified internally and to have a good understanding of all of those different reporting sources that contain personal data that is used by business objects. Secondly, universe objects. Which universe objects use that personal data? So we need to have that awareness as well. And thirdly, as a follow-on to what objects are used, use personal data in the universe, what documents use those universe objects that contain personal data? Fourth, for those documents that contain personal data, how are they refreshed? Are they scheduled? What is the interaction with those documents internally? Are you able to tell? And fifth, who's got access to those documents and what rights do they have on those documents? So within that framework of questions, we want to provide concrete answers relative to SAP Business Objects and GDPR and that interaction. And I like to think of it as data lineage. What it is that comes in, how is it processed, and how does it come out in a report and an instance, etc. We need to have an understanding of that complete flow of personal data outside and inside of business objects. So this is where we come in, and we are offering the possibility of providing tools to help with that GDPR data discovery and that GDPR project. And we aim to essentially help with finding out what is the personal data that is GDPR subject to GDPR, and how we can flag it, and then how we can actually make it searchable, and how can we find it within SAP Business Objects. So in this sense, we're thinking about 2 specific solutions that we have. I mentioned earlier 360 Univ, which is a tool to allow you to essentially export the universe, the content of the universe, so the metadata of that universe to Excel, and then you can manipulate the Excel spreadsheet to modify, to add, to delete as well. And for us, we're seeing this as a good starting point, because once you know what is available in your universe, once you've exported all of that metadata of the universes to Excel, then you can go through a process of identifying that personal data. And because 360 Univ allows you to do that update, that bulk update, you can then flag in Excel the universe object description, so wherever there is personal data, and you can tag it in the description field. So you can add a flag of GDPR. And then you will be able to re-import using 360 Univ again, the Excel spreadsheet, so all that universe metadata, and then I will update that universe that is available in your business objects repository. And then the outcome will be that for all those universe objects that are GDPR, you will have that flag in the description that tells you that this is personal data. The next step, using 360 Eyes, because we're able with this solution to drill into business objects and do a full BI on BI, we're able to pick apart the universes, reports. We also get data from the CMS, from the audit repositories. So in that sense, we're able to then provide you with those reports that are pre-canned, so you don't need to actually develop anything yourself. And those reports will allow you to then monitor, document, and also audit all of those reports and universes that use that GDPR data so that you know exactly what the usage is. And then we can push that further with the set of reports that we provide in 360 Eyes, where you can do a full audit trail of user activity, user actions on those reports, on those instances as well. So you can see reports that have been scheduled, instances that have been created, and whether those instances also contain GDPR data. So essentially, step one will be to take those universes that you suspect to contain GDPR data. Using 360 Univ, export to Excel, so you can see the full flavor of classes, dimensions, predefined filters, measures. Then you can go through that Excel export, identify that personal data, flag it within the Excel spreadsheet, and then re-import it to update the universe with that flag. And then the next step is to monitor, audit, and document that content using 360 Eyes. So this is a screenshot before we move on to the demo, just to give an idea of what the output of an export to Excel universe looks like. So I'm going to go on to the demo now. And I'm going to connect onto my demo environment. And we're going to have a look at 360 Univ. So 360 Univ is a client tool. And the reason for that is because the SDK that is used is leveraging information design tool. So in order to make 360 Univ work, one of the prerequisites is to have information design tool installed either on a client machine or server machine so that it uses the SDK. So that's a little bit different to the rest of our solutions that leverage the web app SDK, the BO Java SDKs. But this is still a Java application, only that it's a client tool. So to get access to this particular solution, it's on the support site. There's a download available. Since it's a new product, it also has its own license. And if you want to trial this product, then we can provide you with a trial license key for you to play around with it. So there is a version for UNX, which I'm going to be showing you now. And we also have a version for UNV. So once the installer has been downloaded, you can unzip the files, click on the launcher, and then you will be presented with this interface. So there is a question in the question pod, and the question asks, is that applicable to UDT and IDT? So yes, it is. A version of 360 Univ for UDT, so for UNV files, and we have a version of 360 Univ for IDT, so for UNX files. So we cover both file formats. So once you've connected to 360 Univ using your BO credentials, you are presented with a list of UNX universes that are available in your Business Objects repository. And it's pretty straightforward to use. You select the universe that you want to export, so you are provided with the path as well, and you click on the export button. What this will do is it will prompt you for a file name and a location where to save the file. I created an export directory where my files are saved. So now I'm going to bring up the Excel export, and I'm going to show you what it looks like, so what you can expect from it. So there are a number of tabs, as you can probably see at the bottom, and you have one for classes, one for dimensions, one for measures, and one for filters. So this respects the structure of universes as they exist, where you have the classes, and the dimensions and the measures and all the predefined filters. But what it does is that it creates one tab for each one of those types of objects. So if we go into the dimensions, what you can see, for example, is that we have all of the metadata for it. So we have the name of the universe, we have the dimension in green here, and that column B contains the class, so it does respect that hierarchy, that structure. Then we have the description, we've got the state, so we also get, so we can change this particular value. Same with the access levels, the type of data. We also get the select statement, which we can change, the where clause, and whether this is an attribute or not, and again with a drop-down list. We have the same for the measures. So similar, we have the state, access level, data type, select, where, and the function for the projection on Webby or Crystal reports. And we have the predefined filters with all of their description, the state, select, where, filter, whether it's for universes or whether it's applied on list values. So I'm just fielding a few more questions. So I've got a colleague online who's specifying, yes, it is only for UNX currently. That's the one that's on the support portal, that's correct. And I'm being asked for more details about trial version in terms of costs and also duration. So I will contact this person offline and provide that information as well. So going back to our dimensions, this is where we're most likely to see personal data, which is the focus of today. And here I have actually added a few tags for GDPR, so hashtag GDPR, in some fields, some dimensions. So those are details, zip code and address, for example, which would be likely to contain personal data. So we have name of manager. So I've tagged the description with GDPR. So once you've done that discovery of the universe objects, and then you have tagged them accordingly in their description field, then you can save that file, and then you can import it back using 360 Univ. So it's just a matter of opening the folder where that particular file is stored, and then clicking on import to import it. So the other benefits as well of this particular management of the universe is that you can bulk delete. So if you find that you do have personal data that is not relevant anymore, then you can do a bulk delete. So the 360 UNIF solution will allow you to also bulk delete content within the universe. So then you import this file and it will update the universe live. So what does it look like when that has been done? So I'm going to go into my Bio Launchpad and we're going to look at some of those of the outcome within 360i's reports. So 360i's comes with an LCMBR file, which contains, amongst other things, a set of reports. And some of those reports pertain to what is available in terms of reports themselves, so report documentation, whether it's Desky, Webby, Crystal, dashboards, etc., as well as universe information. So earlier in my universe documentation, so report number 70, since I updated my UNX, universe, and tagged it with the GDPR, then I can go into this report, refresh it, choose a snapshot, so for my universe, and then execute this report. And then I will see in the description of the objects that I tagged reflected that GDPR. So this is thereby allowing me to see what content is personal data without actually having to go into every single one of my reports or every single one of my universes to make that, that manual verification. So we're providing the means of bulk updating and automating this, this entire process. So those are the pre-canned reports that already exist within 360i's. And those are the reports which we found to be the most pertinent. And those are the reports which currently we're in the process of developing further to have some specific filters, some specific prompts that will allow you to simply enter the value of the tag that you have provided in 360 UNIF for that universe. So in this case, we had that hash GDPR, and then it will return to you all of the data, so universes, documents that contain that GDPR information, so all that personal data. And it also covers things like security, because that's another question that we asked ourselves earlier. Who's got access to what? And matrix, you can find out for universes, and we also do it for folders, which user has access to those particular universes, those particular reports. We can also do it for scheduling. So within the scheduling analysis, we can see all of the instances that have been ran or that are about to run based on a schedule. And then we can see which contain personal data or data that we flagged as GDPR. We can track duplicate reports as well. We know that's for an administrator is the bane of having users keeping copy of public folders reports within their inboxes or the personal favorites, personal documents. So we're able to track those. So we're not falling into that loophole of, well, we've identified personal data in our public reports, public documents, but we do have a number of users that still contain copies in their favorites. So that needs to be weeded out as well. Report documentation that will give you all of the objects within the reports. So picking apart all of those reports, and then you'll be able to find which objects, which variables, for example, if any, uses GDPR tagged data. Same with the unpurged documents. You can track that as well using those reports. Impact analysis, that's another good one with data source objects. So universe object that contains any kind of GDPR tagged data that can be exposed as well. Document usage, so we can see who uses those documents that contain GDPR tagged data. User action list and user activities, those are big ones again in terms of having an audit trail of what resources, what documents the users have accessed, when, and the date, and what action as well. Was it a refresh? Was it an instance? So you can get the full scope of the usage on the platform. Universe documentation, that's the report that we've seen with tracking which universe objects we're getting closer to that enterprise data warehouse or reporting sources of GDPR tag data. We can also compare those universes. So if you want to make sure that between environments or even within an environment, everything in the universes has been correctly tagged, or maybe if a universe is being developed, then you can have a comparison before and after, and then track what objects have been added, what objects have been deleted. So that again helps with tracking the flow of that personal data. If it's been removed, there might still be reports or instances that contain that personal data. And using some of those reports previously, like scheduling analysis, document usage, then you're able to find out where the potential loopholes, where personal data managed to slip through are. Same with unused universe objects, then you can find out, again, maybe just for cleaning up, which dimensions, measures are used, are not used, and also tracking which ones are GDPR tagged objects or not. So I'm just fielding a few more questions in the question pod. Question is, will this tool also create objects based on definition in Excel file? And the answer is yes. So I will go back to my Excel spreadsheet. So you can create new objects, so new rows. We're not recommending creating new columns because these contain the metadata, so we don't want to change those columns. But we can add new rows, so I can add a new class if I want to with its description and its state. Similarly, for dimension, I can add a new dimension or a new detail. I can add new measures and new filters. So it really is full bulk updates, insert, and deletion. So I have a few more questions. Hi, Mina. Assuming it will also be possible to create a separate dimension field terms flag in the UNV or universe in order to identify a GDPR field instead of to the description field. So yes, that's a possibility as well. Let me see, there's more, meaning an attribute to a dimension. That's also a possibility. So for those dimensions, create it as an attribute, absolutely. And this will be picked up when we come to looking at the universe documentation or the report documentation. Anything that is tagged will be able to be surfaced. And a few more questions. So does the report analysis include the review of DESKI? So I take it to understand that those 360 eyes reports also include DESKI. And in this case, the answer is yes. So with 360 eyes, we go through the entire file store. So all the various document types that are housed in the file store. So the popular ones are Crystal, Webby, and DESKI. But we're also able to extract metadata for Excelsius, dashboards, Lumira, Design Studio, Explorer, etc. So now that we've seen what kind of process we propose to enable that discovery of GDPR data within business objects, so it's not left out, we've got other solutions as well that can help to that GDPR compliance. With Bind, which is our report comparison tool, we can check the existence of GDPR data between different versions of reports, for example. With Cast, let's say that there is a Chief Information Security Officer that has been appointed specifically for GDPR. Then we can use Cast to burst dynamically those 360 eyes reports that we've to notify them about the usage, for example, or just the existence of GDPR tag data. With 360 View, we can drill down into the security, user resource-centric, and we can look at everything from folders to applications to universes and connections. And here we can, again, play Big Brother and find out who's got access to what. And we can detect any security anomalies and modify them easily because the modification is done live. And 360 Plus, for us, that's a key one as well, because that allows you to back up your business objects and not having to contend with doing a backup of your CMS, of your databases, and then having your input and output file store in sync, but you can do full and incremental backups at object for every single object individually, and that then allows you to do full or selective restores, so you can restore a single object, like a user, for example, and you also cover it for disaster recovery. That's another modality that we provide. So before we wrap up, who we are. So we're GBN Smith. We've got about 70 employees worldwide, and the company is mostly based in France, but we've got offices in the UK, in the US, in Australia. We have an investment of people in R&D. We invest heavily in R&D. We've got about 50% of the 70 people working in R&D, and we've got support based in Europe and North America as well to cover every time zone. We've got more than 500 customers, about 2 million administered users of business objects, and those customers are present in about 30 countries, small to big deployments, and we love to be innovative and to continuously evolve and the tools as well. So to wrap up, I'd like to thank you for attending. Thank you very much for your questions. I'm just going to have a quick run through again to make sure that I've answered everyone. Great. And I'd like to tell you about our upcoming events and webinars. So we'll be in Birmingham at the UKI SUG, 6th and 28th to 28th of November. So if you're around, please come to our booth. And our next webinar, which will be the last one of the year next month, will be covering new features and roadmap for 360 Suite. And we don't have yet the webinar for next year published, but if you visit our website, 360suite.io, there will be information very soon. So please do not hesitate to get in touch with us. And I've seen that there are quite a few interests in regards to having a free trial, so I'll follow up with the participants who have expressed that. But do not hesitate to get in touch with us for a free trial, for a demo, and we'll be more than happy to show you 360 Suite can make your business, can enhance your business objects experience. So thank you very much for attending, for your time, and have a good afternoon. Thank you. Bye-bye.